All right, here we go. Myer Clarity. Welcome back to TLOY, man.
So good to be back. Thanks for having me again. What's up, everybody?
Most definitely, man. This is like kind of like your first actual like in-person interview. Actually, I remember like in-person video interview. Actually, not like the whole like in-person interview where you kind of do like the write-ups and stuff like that, like on record and all that. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, like since the last time we had to do it on Zoom, and initially we were actually supposed to do the in-person video interview on the first time last year, but COVID and the pandemic.
Bro, it has been a whole roller coaster. It is crazy to just be like in person again. All my social skills have completely deteriorated over the pandemic. So, yeah, it's a vibe. It's great. It's good to be back in the flesh with you. I know we did a Zoom interview where I was live from the sewing room. So that was probably not me at my best. So I'm excited for part two to let people know what is going on.
Yeah, most definitely. So let's get it started. So basically, you have a new single out right now, Marooned. It has like the more like Maroon 5 type of like influence like on the song too, and then a whole lot of other singles too, and then just recently a while back, with tour support and all that. So just getting into those two important like pieces of music right now, Marooned and like tour support. Like, what was like the creative process like, and the inspirations for both?
Yeah, let me walk you through both. So let me start off with tour support and say that spanned from 3 different studios as an album. It was wild because it started initially with Boney and I. I think we linked up and worked on Her first. Might have been the first record. I got the worst memory for these kinds of things. But that shit would have been when Skeeves and I were living together. We had like a makeshift home studio. So that was called the Sweat Lodge. And we almost called tour support the Sweat Lodge just because the day we linked up and recorded, it's hot as fuck in there. It was brutal. No air conditioning, skylight, tight quarters. It was sweaty. Lots of weed. But yeah, we linked. We made Her. Realized that we had a real good dynamic going on, so we decided to make a couple more joints. And then it just turned into like Boney would come through for recording days and just knock out like 5 to 6 songs in like 3 takes kind of thing, just on some magician shit. And then I'd be the dude behind the boards like, all right, let's take these, let's create songs, let's build a whole fucking structure out of them, and then we would just throw ideas back and forth. And what started out as just like a couple singles, I was just trying to mess around and see, what sounded good, turned into a whole EP, and we got really excited about it. And tour support slowly became this like fuck you-esque letter to the industry by independent artists for independent artists, because the whole thing was made in-house, and we were destroying in-house and everything. I was doing all the mixing and production and shit. Going back to what I was saying, we later moved studios to the downtown Front Street studio, which was the No Damn Good Studios, originally the Heavy Ox Studios. And we put in more work there when it was going through a transitionary period. And then once that shit got shut down for condos, I kind of finished up the album in the sewing room a little bit, just going through the final mixes and shit. And now we're here at the lovely, untitled Kill Zone. I guess Kills likes to call it Kill Zone. I think we need a name that's conducive to both of us. He needs to meet me halfway on this one. But, we'll call it something. I like the term the bunker. I feel like there's a lot of studios called the bunker. I Googled it. There were. Something in that vein. But yeah, tour support. That was wild. And I'm very proud of that body of work. And I also, the last thing I'll say about this record, before I fix myself being a sweaty wreck, is that it was kind of like, in addition to being like a fucking cool ass project that I'm really proud of, it was kind of like a way for me to prove to myself that I could Dr. Dre some shit. I could make something from start to finish with me being the only, like, the last line of defense in terms of mixes. Which that's scary, I like having other people. I don't really like trust myself for that kind of shit. So to be the last one on the line, it was basically a, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-actualization or something. I don't know. I had to prove to myself. I'm proud. We did it. We pulled it off. It's to the point where it led me to make Marooned, which once again was the exact same kind of thing, where I sampled a song we all know and love, flipped it, made the beat, produced it, recorded that shit in the booth behind me. It started out in the bedroom, which is why I say live from the motherfucking bedroom. But yeah, ended up polishing off the shit over here. And once again, last line of defense, I did the mixing, did the mastering, and sent the shit to Spotify, you know? We got to cut costs as artists since we're getting fractions of a penny out here.
Most definitely, man. I know right now, like, sampling's like very like popular, like right now, like with music right now. So I know even recently there's this like weird term that I'm finding on like hip hop Twitter called like sample snitching and all that, in which I think a lot of like producers tend to like hide their samples like from people to find out and all that from like certain songs, and it's kind of like this whole like producers like no or like some sort of like shame thing, like if you like find the song of a sample, you know, like it's like snitching in that sense too. And even like with hip hop right now, I don't know if you know like the whole like New York drill sound like right now.
I'm not up on my New York drill, but in regards to sample snitching, that's like part of like the producer culture is like a faux pas. It's like, don't snitch on me on what I flip. I even had a bar that I wrote this morning where it's like describing, you know, like most of my career, where it's like crackers in my ear telling me samples never clear, which means that like my whole career I was pushed away from samples by like people outside of, you know, like the hip hop genre, telling me that like, oh, well, it's not going to clear and you're not going to be able to use it. And your whole edge should be the fact that you don't have samples. And I ran with that for like a minute. I was like making that my edge. But then like the more I sample and the more I listen and the deeper I go into the roots, it's like, you know, it really is just built into the genre. It's like hip hop is something from nothing. So like part of the whole art form is how can you take something that already exists and make it something new. And to try and avoid that is just gonna, you'll get a different sound. It might be a dope sound, but like the hip hop sound really is so ingrained in just, you know, flipping something. And it's something usually that's from childhood too. So, you know, it hits like a soft spot. It's something that we even recognize. I would even say now we're in an era where like sample clearing has gotten so much easier because of sites like TrackLib and stuff and Splice, that people are sort of like aware of that and are using it as like a competitive edge, which I'm sure existed before, you know, with sites like Who Sampled and stuff. But like people are taking really well-known samples and like flipping them and trying to make them their own. And so it turns into this whole thing of like who flipped it best, who did something unique and interesting with it. And from that perspective, I think that's dope. So yeah, if you're gonna snitch on people sampling, you're snitching already. So yeah, you fucking up. Don't do it.
But even recently too, to speak more on the whole like New York drill type thing, there's a subset of a drill like in New York called like Bronx drill, where a lot of these like rappers, like, you know, named like K Flock and D Fang and B Love, they're using like 2000s like hip hop, like, you know, R&B and pop samples, and also from like well-known like EDM tracks, and they're using it like within like drill music to diss other people and all that. So how do you feel, like even like in that situation too, or even like with new songs, how do you feel about this new form of like sampling, by the way, you know?
Like used specifically to diss people?
Not even like for dissing people, just like what you're hearing like right now and all that, you know? So
you know, honestly, like I don't know enough about the scene to really be able to offer any sort of comment. I think that, you know, hip hop is like rock and roll in the sense that it has a lot of babies. Rock and roll has things like post rock, punk rock, you know, country and shit like that, and they all sort of derive their roots, and they all derive their own respective fan bases. And man, like, you know, shit that's a super niche punk rock group does not necessarily reflect the entirety of rock and roll, and vice versa. So I guess it's important to just sort of remember that as well when we talk about like budding subgenres of hip hop, I suppose. But yeah, I gotta take a deep dive. I'm an old man. I'm late on my shit. Like I try to stay updated, but like, I fucking lead singer of Black Flag had a fucking thing about this, and I'm blanking on his name. Henry Rollins. There you go. He has carb listening and like protein listening or something. And carb listening is like where you listen to your favorites and shit. So like carb listening for me would be like listening to Illmatic or Cunning Linguist or whatever. And then protein listening is like I'm gonna go out of my way to check out something new that isn't in my like CD Rolodexes. So I thought that was interesting. I'm like, oh shit, it's kind of like a dope balance of the two.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I want to get more into the whole like meet me at the park situation. So apparently, right now it's in its 10th anniversary for the project. So you made that in 2012, and then you've used that project to perform at like various like shows, toured all over it. Did like a lot of like promo for it. So how do you feel about like the 10th anniversary like right now for that project?
Man, first of all, time flies, which is a crazy phenomenon. It's wild, and that record will forever be a baby to me. But it's crazy to see that 10 years later, that's still probably one of my biggest records. And I'm excited to say that we have a little something special planned for the 10-year anniversary. We're going to drop a little something to celebrate. And yeah, I just looking back, there were so many things about that record that I did right that I didn't even realize at the time, that like now I'll look back and listen to and be like, oh, way to go, like, including the skaters and shit, because like that's a whole demographic that you've been trying to tap in with, and the more you write bars including those motherfuckers, the more they're going to include you in their videos and shit. Or like small flow things or bars or whatever. Just the way it was a moment in time, and I think like the more time that passes, the more that kind of increases in value in a way, like gem wise. It's just like it's a special memory that I'm really glad we captured on video, and I'm happy that we got something to celebrate the 10-year. That's gonna be big.
Most definitely, man. So also you, like as you mentioned, you relocated to a new studio, and you even like talked about it that you and Fresh Kils have owned and are both a part of since then. So how did you feel like when the old studio got demolished, and you really had to like set up shop again, like at this new place? So
it definitely, like, I had to take a moment, because it got me, because like I'm tied very closely with like the fight against gentrification. I'm very aware of it. It's come for me, it's come for my family members multiple times, and I was hyper focused on what is going on in Toronto, which is a sort of ground zero for the Canadian housing crisis. And I talked about it in Trouble. I was like, this shit's like a forest fire coming for my house, and there's nothing I could do about it. And it got me, and we had to move. We had no choice. All I did was just make sure that we did everything in a way that we could keep our respect and get our money back and not miss a beat. So thankfully, when we got the news, which was just after tour, which is not fun, we started looking around, and thankfully we found this spot thanks to Ozzy, and we rebuilt. And for a minute I was really bitter. If I'm being real, I was really like mad at like gentrification, and I still don't fuck with it, but I've gotten to this place mentally where it's like other people's actions don't really affect me as much as they used to, just because I can think on it in a way where it's like, okay, well, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be as corny, so at least there's that. But yeah, it's good to be back.
Nah, I definitely know what you mean. You gotta be bigger and then stronger than ever, like bigger and better either way. So, and it's crazy too because like we can even talk about it in the whole like concert venue scene and all that. So, old venues being torn down to come back in a sense too. I think with Silver Dollar and all that, with Elmo Combo, like even though they were still there, Mod Club going into like Access Club and all that. So, do you feel that there could be an upsurge on gentrification happening in other like music venues in Toronto, or like even just rebranding in that sense?
Oh, for sure. I think like um, we're in a period now where I don't know how much longer it's going to last because I'm not at the front of it, but we're in a period where people are kind of pyramid scheming the housing market, and there's a greater fool theory going on. So essentially, everyone's trying to pawn off the thing they sold for a greater price than they paid for it. And that leaves a city full of empty buildings that are worth not what they're charging for. And no one uses these buildings because the rental is overpriced. And every apartment has been converted to an office. Every office has been converted to an apartment. Everything's backwards. Everyone's just looking at like, what's the legal minimum square footage we could get away with? And it's a profit-driven housing industry that has completely stripped any culture from Toronto one by closing venues and shutting down the ability to even interact with anyone because you're always on the clock and you're always paying rent and you're just trying to survive. And people who are just trying to survive, they ain't got time for friendship and shit like that. Like, and that's all of us now. We're all in like a crab bucket, right? Where it's like we're all just struggling to fucking pay rent and keep a roof over our head. Jobs don't pay what they should. Rent is, 3 times what it was 10 years ago. Every third venue you love that you grew up with has been torn down and turned into like a TD lobby or some shit. It's like sad to see. And it just sort of coalesced with the pandemic as well in a way that, it was like having oily rags right next to a fucking fire pit. It was only natural that it was going to happen. So, I'm sad to see a lot of these venues go. I think that when shit like this happens, it forces the youth to get creative. So I think we're going to see a lot of pop-up venues. I think we're going to see a lot of pop-up shows and like secret rave type shit. But yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to like dig ourselves out of this, hole that we're in market-wise.
No, I definitely know what you mean too, and I think in some cases too, it does have like a toll on people who lived together like before too in the past, like whether it's like knowing from high school too, or from like college, or from like meeting up at like bars and all that. So, and then you have your friends like move away to like further areas where you might not even have time to like access the, like to meet them and all that, or just to even like hang out for like a beer and all that. So, do you feel like it's harder to even reconnect with like old friends who've moved away to like certain places like throughout Ontario or throughout Canada in that sense, or like even in the world?
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely like a citywide exodus. People realized city life wasn't it, and a lot of people realized they could work from home and dip. A lot of my friends moved out of the city just because it was too expensive. City limits themselves is trying to limit us, right? So I always kind of noticed just that like when I had moved here from Montreal, there was like a stark difference in terms of like everyone's social etiquette, and I realized after being here for a minute that it was due to like the difference in rent, because in Montreal it's like people are a little less guarded, because if you stumble upon another English speaker, you're like, oh, hey, what up? You're not going to yell at me in French, and it's very like, hey, how's it going? Versus here, it's like everyone speaks English, but everyone assumes everyone else is a serial killer, because we're all stuck at home watching the news, trying to pay for shit, too tired to go out. I guess is my assessment. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not trying to speak for all of Toronto. I just noticed that there was less joie de vivre, joy for life, and it made it difficult. And I realized it was because the rent was like a good fucking $500 more expensive. Like, I had a good I had a 2.5 back in Montreal that was 20 minutes from downtown, and my half of the rent was $375. You know, I would never in a million years find that shit here. So yeah, you know, that changes you. It changes what you allocate your time to, what you prioritize. You know, and if money is always the focus, then who's got time for friends and shit, right? So I've noticed that like as we raise the prices of everything and inflation goes higher, we're all going to get a little more cutthroat, and a lot of our interactions are going to become more transactional, unfortunately, which I don't like and I don't think is cool. I think it's fucked up, and I want to move to a small town. So that's how I feel.
So to get back on like a lighter note and all that, so you've mainly worked with Fresh Kils throughout the whole like studio process, from working at the original No Damn Good like studio to now here. So how did you guys link up by any chance, and what was like working with him like, and what was like some advice or lessons that you guys learned from each other that you both implemented in your music now?
Kills has been like the OG for forever, and I always wanted to work with him. And when I moved to Toronto, our mutual friend, I think it was SRH, put us in touch. And shout out to Benny Main. He goes by Benny Main now. Yeah, he put us in touch. We linked up for a couple sessions. And I was just there as like a fly on the wall kind of thing, or like working on some stuff. And then eventually that relationship morphed into me actually running his studio for him when he was out of town. So I used to go over to his place because he had a spot, right at Wellesley, and I would record, a bunch of his clients while he was out of town and hold it down and fix things and run the studio. And that just sort of turned into like a partnership where it was like, mutual respect built there, and also 5 years down the line when we re-linked up and I had my own spot and I was looking for like a studio partner, I was like, hey, what's good? And that time that I had put in way back when, interning and such, paid me back now because we have a spot that we share mutually. And it's like, I don't even think about it in terms of like I just see this as like I'm going into the office today kind of thing. But like, I got to tap in with my younger me and be like, hey, younger Myer, did you know that you co-own a studio with a Canadian rap legend right now? That's pretty hardcore. You'd probably be very stoked about that if you found that out. So, you gotta fucking appreciate the flowers and shit. And like, I'm grateful for Kils. He's brought so much gear to this situation. We got vinyl. He brings wisdom. He's part of the reason why I started feeling secure enough to drop shit myself, because he's always been very like positive of my mixes and shit. So yeah, that that kind of gave me a little bit of the oomph I needed to start dropping things for me. And we'll have these co-working sessions where he's working on something in the chair, I'm working on something over here. Put the headphones on, take the headphones off. Show each other what we're working on. It's there really is something to be said for having like more than one person in the room when you're creating, for sure.
Most definitely. Mind if I ask, who were some like dope artists that you've had like in the studio before, like just recently in that sense?
Recently? So Jordan was supposed to come through. We've had Dio come through. We've had Icy in the new spot. I think Junior T came by the other day. Kills is bringing in a lot of the heavy hitters. I know Decisive came through. As for me on my end, I had Skeevious in the other day. We got Trophy Kid Diz coming through. Trying to get Boney in for another session. Might do some shit with Danielle. It's pretty much like what we do is we charge $60 an hour, and anyone who wants to come through and lay some vocals down. My selling point is that, I'm like your rapper engineer, right? Because like the thing that I found when I was looking for an engineer, and part of the reason why I do shit for myself, is like it's hard to find someone with the ear for the lyrics and like how that shit lands, in terms of like the pentameter and the tempo of it and all. So once you find an engineer who's got that like sensitivity to that and can actually be like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be vocal heavy performance because it's rap music, you appreciate that is what I'm trying to say, and you pay extra special attention to detail, and you might even like, sometimes someone will be in the booth spitting shit a certain way. I'll be like, what if you said it like this? Because it'll flow a little better. And it's that kind of input that sets you apart. Sorry, I totally steamrolled that question, though. I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah, who's coming through. Yeah. My people.
In the past, too, like, who else came by, like, way before? I know you said, like, Ice the One, you said Junior, you said Dio, you said, like, all these other names, too, so... I don't know if you've had, like, other ones, like, when it first opened for a bit.
Oh, I mean, I know back in the Heavy Ox days, we had, like, Coleman Hell come through, which was pretty big. I know Callie from Bad Waitress is going to come through soon. We actually used to work together for Snap Hook. A lot of people have been through over the, not here so much, but, like, at the other spot. Yeah. Names are escaping me right now. We had IMV come through. Corey Lee came through, which was major. Just like lots of dope, talented people, and we want to bring more dope, talented people through.
I know, like, with you guys, with you, Illy, Skeeves, everyone else too, like, even from the collective that I've met, you guys were big on touring and all that, toured, like, all over the world in that sense too. I had Skeeves back for the other interview back in March and all that, and he talked about touring, like, in, like, the US and, like, in Europe and all that. So with you, like, I know that you've opened up for, like, a lot of big acts like Mocha and, like, Yellow Wolf, but to speak more on your touring in that sense too, so tell me more about, like, touring all over, like, the world in that sense, or, like, almost all over the world, and I don't know if you have any, like, crazy stories you'd like to tell about that?
I mean, there's, like, a lot of not safe for work crazy stories. Touring's interesting because I feel like it takes a toll on your body, and it's not easy for people to relocate every single night. But due to my fucked up childhood and relocating every single night, I'm, like, weirdly wired for it. So I actually very much enjoy not having, like, a base of operations, and I like the switch up. I will say, in terms of touring, you definitely always want a spot with continental breakfast so that you could load up on that shit and bring it with you and save money on lunch. You definitely want to establish your per diem and make it something realistic. In terms of, like, wild tour stories, there's crazy shit like, being at a boat party with, like, J. Rude Damager on the boat that, like, Dio invited, or, like, meeting Rook from Justice League, who I, like, came up listening to his beats and shit. Things like over at New School Rules and stuff, where it's like you'll meet these, like, pillars of your industry, and they're just chilling and having a smoke, and you get to freestyle for them, and you're like, is this real? Is this happening? And the next thing you know, you're in a golf cart with, like, some legends driving through the festival, and you're like, how did this happen? Back when I used to drink, I remember I got in the back of Way Home and got drunk with Death from Above. That was interesting. Although I was trying to link up with Chaos, but I don't think he was trying to chill. But touring is, like, I don't know. It's it can be exhausting, but it's one of, like, I'm super grateful I get to do it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, most definitely. I don't know, like, in that sense too, do you have to always, like, try to eat, like, healthy in that sense to be good, like, on the road and, like, performing too? Because I know, like, eating, like, McDonald's, or eating, like, fast food, or eating, like, luxury, like, stuff, could take a toll on your body in that sense. So do you kind of, like, balance it out, like, on whatever you eat?
I'm not the best at it, but, like, the ideology is that, you eat stuff that'll fuel your body that's not gonna break the bank. So, like, if you just do some rudimentary nutritional research and shit, and be like, all right, I'm gonna need some kind of protein, so that's the eggs, and then what's cheap? I guess fucking something to carry me through the day, nuts or baby carrots or whatever. But I do eat a lot of McDonald's, so I'm not really, like, the best, to give advice. I'm not the guy for the advice. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just hard to do it, and in, like, a perfect world, you're eating 3 squares a day. Obviously, that's not the case on the road. But get the food where you can get it. Try to wrangle up a couple home-cooked meals. because that actually goes a long way. That's food cooked with love, which you realize you don't get a lot of after you've been eating at McDonald's for a minute. And yeah, and if you don't want to do all these things, well, enjoy having like the worst shits of your life before every single show and worrying about if you need to fucking plug your own asshole up before you hit the stage because some shit might drip down your leg because you've been eating like an unescorted 5-year-old at a birthday party.
I definitely know what you mean, and you know it's crazy with the whole like do's and don'ts. Like, I mean, you already detailed like some of the do's and all that, but I think, you know, even with the don'ts, I don't know if like the major one would be to like not like shit on the bus and all that or something like that.
Oh, I mean, I never even had a bus you could shit on. Like, you want to hear crazy tourist stories? Is that we had this one, the only bus I was ever on was called the Buzz Bus. It didn't have a toilet. It was an old church van that we bought in fucking rural Indiana, that T-Zank bought and turned into our tour van. And it was so old and shitty. The fucking windshield was cracked. The passenger seat rusted out of its frame and we had to throw it out halfway through the tour. Before that, it was just loose. Like, we'd be driving and the seat is just fucking rattling in the thing. And you're just like, let's hope we don't get into an accident. So yeah, that shit was crazy. The Buzz Bus. That was fun though. Those are memories. We smoked a lot of weed in that motherfucker. Yeah, that was the only like tour bus I've been on. Everything else has been like a Fiat or some shit. And that sucks because there's no leg room. So
Minivan and all that, or something like that.
I wish a minivan. Fuck.
I don't know if you have any other like don'ts by any chance, you know, like
don't get a small car. Don't fucking do it. It's not, I mean, I guess if you're 2 people, fine, but like if you're more than 2 people, don't pack people in like sardines. We got a lot of hours on the road. Other don'ts are I guess, you know, find someone trustworthy to run the merch table, because otherwise people are just, drunk people steal shit. They don't even want it. They're just gonna take it because they can. I used to take fucking cassette tapes. I have a bunch of blank cassette tapes that I stole when I used to drink. I don't want them. I didn't need them. Now they're garbage. But that's what people do. So find someone trustworthy for the merch booth. You know, try to do a bit of research when you like pick places to stay, obviously, because otherwise you might end up in some shady ass motels. But even then, that makes a story. So, you know, it's up to you. Do not ever accept someone's invitations to go get drunk in the middle of the desert and shoot assault rifles, because they're just using that as a cover to murder you. Don't. We got invited and we almost went, and then someone kind of politely informed us that we were probably going to get murdered out there. Yeah, so, you know, guy had the murdering eye, you know, kind of looked like John Cena.
It's wild, and I guess, you know, since you guys were touring a lot more than like any other artists I've seen in the city and all that, so I guess, you know, you kind of have like these crazy experiences in that sense too, and I do feel like those are like kind of like important for like any artist that wants to tour and all that. I wouldn't say like even like touring around the US, like unless they're good to go to the country, but you know, like even like around Canada, you know, so.
Yeah. I think the one other thing that like touring helps with is like, maybe this is just me, but you know, it gets rid of your fear of being broke. You know, like you can live broke and you realize like, okay, like this is how to do it and this is where to go for like a bare bones kind of like on the street life. And you get to like dip your toes in that pool a little bit, and that frees you up, because a lot of people are scared of being broke, and that prevents them from following their dreams. And you gotta fucking not be scared of that shit. So tour helps.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Before we get into like everything else right now, like I think there's like this one important thing that I think it has been like kind of controversial for a while. The Will Smith slap at the Oscars and all that costed Will Smith a lot of like time to not be at the Oscars for
a while,
you know, like, and I think Chris Rock, you know, he's dealing with therapy right now, and I think the comedy scene and the comedy genre took like a huge L, because now everyone's like a target right now in that sense too. Which even with Dave Chappelle, like the attack at the Hollywood Bowl and all that, and kind of got worse. So
That was wild.
what are your thoughts on that? Like on both situations, by any chance?
Well, I think like I side with like Charlemagne's perspective on the Will Smith thing, in terms of like it did look a lot like projected pain, angled outwardly, you know, and misdirected towards someone else entirely. It seemed like a straw that broke the camel's back moment. I don't know what their interpersonal relationship is like, but you know, it's easy to speculate that there's strain there given the public interactions they've given us prior. So, you know, it's sad to see. I'm glad it didn't get worse. You know, it's funny that you framed it as the comedy world taking an L, because up until the Dave Chappelle shit went down, I would have said that it's actually a W, because it is like joke fodder 2000. It's like there's a million and one things you can write about that slap, and it's fucking iconic. And it's just, you don't expect it coming from Will, right? Like the one rapper that doesn't swear, the guy who makes family movies, like, yeah. But you know, so yeah, that was like, you know, it was shocking. I was like, oh fuck. And I also want to say that Chris handled that shit magnificently, and I recognize, as someone who's been punched in the face while rapping on stage, he didn't flinch and finished the verse and shit. He handled that shit. Yeah, he handled that shit perfectly. It was that's how you do it. So I think, you know, it's like shit, that was like major publicity. Some people think it's a conspiracy. I particularly don't. I just think it's fuck shit. I think even just because you're in Hollywood and you're rich doesn't, you know, insulate you from shit you need to go through in therapy and all that. The Dave Chappelle attack, that shit is wild. I don't know what the fuck is going on with that. Last I heard, I felt like the dude was trying to pedal back, but it's like you rushed a man with some weaponry, so that's not really something you can backpedal from that easily. I think that the Dave Chappelle situation feels like two freight trains that are gonna bang into each other, and, you know, they're both kind of delivering the same shit, though. Like the cargo of both of these trains is like a better living situation for every human being, right? But they're both circumstantially pointed at each other and about to smack, and they got all this momentum, and so it feels like, great, all right, well, we're just gonna watch this fucking train wreck happen, and I hope there's survivors, because fuck's sakes, like, I don't want to see this shit go south anymore. You know, we're stronger together than we are apart, and I think we're more aligned than we are different. So I feel like a lot of... Now, I will say that, like, I don't like that he rolled up to a school and started bullying people. That was some fuck shit. I don't fuck with that, you know. I'm not up on the situation, I guess, so maybe I shouldn't comment. But, you know, from what I've seen, we all need to do better.
I do feel like in that sense too, it could have been prevented if they had security on stage to protect people that are coming up and speaking in that sense too. I do feel like that in some situations too, there should have been like a pre-check if Chris Rock would have said like some stuff going on too to prevent Will from even going up to. And I do feel like in that sense too, I think Will could have had like better logic in that sense too if he knew that this is going to be like a public event, because, you know, at the end of the day, like, everyone lost in that sense too, you know?
Yeah.
Will can't even be at the Oscars for a good amount of years. Chris is gonna have to deal with that for the rest of his life in that sense too, like, just being the guy who got slapped by another A-list celebrity and all that, you know.
Can I add something on that? Actually, I felt doubly bad for Chris right when that happened, because I remember he did come out a couple years back saying that he had this like social learning disorder where it was difficult for him to calculate and anticipate people's reactions, you know, and so he's kind of got like that face blindness, right, where it takes him that extra time to be like, all right, is this socially acceptable? So for Will Smith to just like walk up with a smile and then sucker slap him definitely is some like that's getting analyzed in therapy right now, and that's a huge blip. So I do feel bad for him on that. Gotta remember that, like, as entertaining as other people's pain is, it's still pain, and you gotta also create space for that as well, and try to look at yourself and be like, why am I entertained by people's pain? What's going on with me?
Stuff. I don't know if I could ask this in that sense too, but I don't know if you have like any comedian friends who were deeply like affected by it, like if they had to kind of like handle themselves like for a bit too in that sense.
No, I think like I said, like, it was fodder for most of the comedian friends I have. Like, they were on it in terms of like, this is material. I don't know if there was like a fear that there was going to be people storming the stages like that. I do think let's also have a conversation about security guards, because it feels like there's been a lot of mishaps at shows, and like, people are getting stabbed backstage, people are getting trampled in the audience, people are fucking, I don't know, a lot of shit's happening. What's going on with the security? Are security guards okay? Are they?
I mean, World, a lot of deaths happened because of security.
Yeah.
What else? Jacob the Ruler got stabbed at like going to work at like the festival and all that. Exactly. No security presence and all that. There's like a lot of like, you know, the Dimebag Daryl situation where he got killed just performing and all that, and you know.
That's fucked up, right? And Live Nation was under some scrutiny, I think. So like, yeah, what's going on with that? Let's be real, like, there's several very unhealthy facets in the music industry, and the live show industry has a lot of fucking bad eggs in that basket. And it makes you appreciate the good eggs, but let's be real, there's a lot of creepy show promoters out there. And so it's kind of like, yeah, that shit's gonna need a root canal at some point.
I know with Toronto, like in terms of like the hip hop, rap type stuff, they have what, like Rap Season, Embrace, Live Nation, MRG, and then, you know, even Diamond Mine Agency, and then like Homesick and all that. So kind of like those types of promoters, like even Side Stage 2 and all that. So I don't know if you've ever like interacted with those promoters by any chance, and how like they handled like certain stuff going on.
I don't want to talk too much shit. I've interacted with like a couple promoters. I'm sure you probably know some mutual people. I haven't worked. It's been a minute for me on the tour promoter side of things, and it's also tough to know what was me taking things personally while I was drunk and what was a shitty experience genuinely. I do remember that I had one promoter book me for the Royce 5'9" show, and told me the ticket minimum was essentially I had to make him $2,000 with like 20 tickets. So I came up with this hustle where I would pay $5 on every ticket and undercut him 20%. And then when he found out about that, he undercut me another 20%, and then pretended like it came from Royce's camp. And I still managed to get him his money, even though he for some reason wanted me to fail. And like was giving it to the other opening acts, like, here's a cheaper thing. I'm like, what the fuck? And they would send it to me and be like, yo, this dude just fucking copied your idea. And then, you know, I rock the show, I rock the house, give him his money. Motherfucker gives me $100 and tells me to give it to another opening act who didn't have to sell any tickets. And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? You piece of shit. And then this motherfucker hit on my girlfriend. So, yeah, a lot of fucking shitbag promoters.
Was this the 2016 tour that he had, or was this go?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, you know, it kind of like was like a learning experience in that sense too, to kind of like know which promoter you're gonna work with and all that, and kind of like find the signs too. So
I think, unfortunately, no, because you know, they're still in control, and it is that game. It's just how you present yourself, and I think maybe I'm a little too eager. I don't know, man. Like, maybe you need to make an example of people. Who knows?
It's definitely, man. To get back on this like other subject right now, I think this is also like one of the most important ones right now, because it would lead on to like a crazy topic for a bit too. So the Amber Heard Johnny Depp situation. I think the trial was supposed to be like a couple years ago, but the pandemic happened and all that, and then it just happened this year. And I think the outcome was pretty straightforward, and with everything else like going on with the media and with everything else going on, I think they both are to receive some payment soon. I think Johnny Depp with the most amount of money, and then I think Heard with like 2 million. So, what are your thoughts on that situation? Do you feel like it was like the best outcome to happen for the two, or do you feel like it could have happened a little bit differently in that sense?
I think that the results of this are probably going to be more harmful than helpful. I think that this thing felt more like a production than an actual trial, if I'm being real. Uh, you know, I'm not really like, I'm observing without, engaging is what I'm doing. I don't want to see that hurt other people. I know a lot of people are happy that Pirates of the Caribbean is back on the menu. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I think that, and like not on the conspiracy side of shit, but wasn't there like some Epstein trials going on right now, or like a royal family trial going on right now?
So too, I know with Ghislaine Maxwell, I think she's trying to appeal right now because she did receive like a verdict, I think last year, and then R. Kelly received his verdict too, and then I think one of the most craziest ones that's happening right now in our city, the Jacob Hoggard trial, which I think right now they're still like on deliberations. I've been like researching like every other minute for it, like with what's going on, reading like the articles and stuff like that. Even CBC had like some stuff too before the trial even happened. They actually interviewed one of the complainants about that situation, and I think they had to admit that from the courts and all that. So, how do you feel about that situation right now with Jacob Hoggard?
Oh, I'm not familiar with it. Which I guess I probably should be. Is that like the Toronto serial killer or the?
Jacob Hoggard, I think from Headley.
Oh, right, the Headley dude. Yeah, right. Yeah, you said Headley. It all clicked. Yeah, yeah. Scuzz bags. The live industry. What did I just say? That shit needs a root canal. Ugh. Like, way to tarnish what we do. Yeah, no. It just makes me feel doubly annoyed that, like, I don't know, didn't they, like, give Akon the hardest fucking time for, like, nothing? And then, meanwhile, Headley's kind of, like, just doing whatever the fuck.
I think Akon, because that was that situation in '06 or '07 where I think he was groping on some girl that he didn't even know that was underage, and it affected everything for him and all that. With this whole Jacob Hoggard situation, if you go on Twitter, you'll notice like every other tweet based on it, on how he interacted with other women and all that, and with fans, how his bandmates felt about him in that sense too, and even like with certain like promoters and certain people in that industry too. So
it was like a whole laundry list of shit. Hey. Well, yeah, that dude's either gonna cut a deal or go to jail for a very long time. Yeah, it's fucked up, and yeah, I'm not following that, probably for obvious reasons. It sounds very upsetting. And that's going on in Canada? Yeah, because Headley's Canadian, right?
Yeah, from Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah, I need to learn more about Canadian music.
Most def. I think even just, being in the scene too, like even like just speaking on your experience too, so with the Me Too movement and Time's Up still going strong, what are your thoughts on those movements, and do you feel like it's something that's needed to happen for like any industry, especially with the Toronto like music industry in this sense?
Yeah, man, I think that shit is just like chickens coming home to roost, like you can't act a certain way with impunity and expect the other shoe not to drop, right? A lot of people try to frame it as like there's going to be opportunists in that movement, and I think that makes up maybe like 5% of it. I don't think that that's like the forefront of that movement, and yeah, I think like, we're just seeing how fucking creepy the people who made all of our favorite family films really are. And the shit that we used to all joke about as teenagers kind of turned out to be true. And so I hate to say I told you so. But I fucking told you so. No, I didn't tell anyone shit. I just, popular culture always felt very fishy to me, and when the news comes out that some of the pillars of the aforementioned popular culture are fucking vampires, I'm not surprised. You know?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, Kevin Spacey just even got like a new charge out of the UK for like molesting like a boy or something like that. I think he still has to deal with like trial like right now for that. Even though he got acquitted for like all these other cases which I don't even understand at that point too. But even Toronto, I don't know if you know about this, but there was like a page that used to happen in like 2018 called like Toronto Abusers, in which a lot of people in the rap industry in Toronto were sort of exposed for violating certain people in that sense too. It could be both genders in that sense, and there's a list. I don't know if it's reflective in your scene, but like more so in like mainstream Toronto rap, like a lot of like well-known names were on that list too. So, just even speaking about that, I don't know if you've noticed or seen like any experiences where like sexual harassment and like abuse has happened in your industry by any sense.
I feel like, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the sexual harassment I've seen is actually in other industries. No, but I guess it's also in music too. Yeah, let's be real. A lot to answer there. I feel like definitely there's been some stuff that I've noticed coming up. I feel like, you know, certain things are like clear lines in sand, and other things you sort of learn as you go along, in terms of like, that's not right, you can't talk to people that way, you can't make those kinds of jokes, shit like that, the hope is that we all kind of refine our moral compass in a way that helps everybody thrive, right? That's the goal. So yeah, we want to put a stop to people doing fucked up shit that hurts other people and takes time away from your life, where you have to recover from the thing that someone else did. Life is short. Let's not waste each other's time. And yeah, I mean, like, it's also toxic because like so much of music is built on like the pursuit of music can be built on validation, and that can be dangerous because validation can also come in the form of lust, and lust can make you do dumb shit and make people uncomfortable if you're not paying attention, or if it's not reciprocated. And so, you have to also be cognizant of that. Like, maybe you got into this music thing because you felt disconnected from the world, and now that you're getting attention, you gotta like
maneuver in that sense, actually. So
you gotta just be aware of like how you react to attention and make sure that it's healthy, and like, I don't know, especially for me as like an only kid, like, even I had to like learn most social interactions because I have no brothers or sisters and shit, right? So I didn't know what the fuck normal was. Sure shit wasn't getting it from my parents. So yeah, so that's all learning process. I think like going to bring it back full circle, I think Me Too is like, come on, like we've been saying this shit for fucking decades. So now, actions are going to speak louder than words, and you are going to be publicly dragged, tarred, and feathered. I guess, yeah, those are my thoughts on it. And then like a lot of people like to talk about cancel culture like it's this, Twitter mob, but really it's just everyone being like, don't be an asshole. Like, stop being an asshole. Like, it was cool to be an asshole in the 80s, but it's not the 80s. And fuck the 80s also. Like, fuck the 80s. So, we're doing shit differently. It's no longer the 80s. If you act like it's the 80s, you're gonna get canceled. That's what it is. That's what I wasn't even around for the 80s, but like, I don't know. Am I onto something here? Does this shit sound crazy?
I mean, you made sense in that point too. I do feel like change has to happen, and I do feel like we can't, go into like an old position that we've done so many years, with the old norms and old practices that we used to do, like with the whole like boys like type of effect. Like I do feel like we have to like look into other groups and like how they're affected in that sense too. And I do feel like change starts with understanding like what boundaries are, like what are certain people's norms and like what's acceptable versus like what's unacceptable, what's a safe word versus like what's not so safe in that sense too, body language too, like a lot of important points too in that sense.
And I think like the best place to start with all that kind of stuff is to really like do the work on yourself as men, to analyze like the toxic masculinity you may or may not possess. We all kind of have traits and shit, because like, and to paint this picture for you, when I was a kid, I essentially was like, okay, I have to be, like when I was in grade 5 or whatever, everyone was getting girlfriends and shit, and I was the only one who didn't get a girlfriend, and I was like, how come I'm not getting a girlfriend? And my experience was, you gotta be, was this like Disney movie experience where it's like, I'm gonna be the nice guy and and then everyone around me was treating the girls like shit, and they were responding to that. And I think that was like this toxic masculinity kind of like 90s era culture that we were in, where it was like reinforced. But I was always like, wait, really? This is the thing we're supposed to do? I thought everyone wanted to be like romanced. And I was like super weird and corny as a result. I think I like carved soapstone for this one girl. It was extra. But anyways, all that just to say that like all this shit that I used to like ask the other bros, like, so wait, the girls like it when you like insult them and shit? All that shit later down the line turned out to be like really fucked up, harmful bullshit that, you know, people teach each other, and that eventually turns into this like toxic masculinity, or if you want to venture even further, one might say patriarchy, where we feel like there's specific roles that we have to embody and specific ways we have to act that are manly, and that all that shit is dumb and antiquated and was invented by very insecure people. So you gotta just be you and do it in a way that doesn't fucking hurt anyone. That's it.
Most definitely. You know, it's even crazy too, because when we talk about like consent too, I do feel like it all started from elementary school in that sense too. Like with the teacher, they'll tell you, keep your hands to yourself and put your feet on the ground, and they're really teaching you consent in that sense too. Don't touch people unless they want to be touched too. But I do feel like in this society, I feel like we forget that motion in that sense too. We forget that like whole like alert in that sense too, because I feel like our needs and our like wants in that sense too like overshadow like what we like follow and what we practice in that sense too. And I do feel like that's a major problem too, because with some schools like not teaching it, or like not even being taught at home, like, hey, don't touch this person, you know, like even like a kid will say, stop touching me, or stop, and then that kid won't listen. That's equally the same as a girl feeling uncomfortable like when a man like touches her in like a certain area in that sense too. So
yeah, and it's like, what are the lessons you teach the child when that happens, right? You know, it's like a lot of playground shit is like, oh, they were just horsing around. It's like, well, that's the wrong lesson. the assault is not just horsing around, you know? Maybe shame the kid. Oh, I don't know.
I mean, like, I know some kids would just get sent to the office, or like they get put like in the corner for a bit too, but I think now like there is no punishment like nowadays too, like even if we have this whole reward and punishment type thing, you know, things that should be punished, you know, like such as like sexual violation, harassment, assault, rape, they get rewarded in the weirdest way with acquittals, with dismissals, you know, paying off certain people too. And basically we're not teaching people like the right way, you know. It's just like, hey, you know, we could pay to get out of jail in that sense, you know.
Well, that's because you have two societies on top of each other, where it's like the one that they teach you in school, where it's like, you know, you should be a morally good person and work hard and this, but then like the actual one that exists, which is like laws don't apply to the rich, because all punishment is financially based, and so they can buy their way out. And straight up, like, you know, I had a friend whose father told him everyone's a whore for the right price. What the fuck do you think that does to a kid, you know? He's an accountant now. So, voila, you know? We are what our parents teach us, and a lot of people haven't been given the right kind of skill sets to be parents. And it like just always comes back to like it takes a village to raise a child, right? And most of the time I just see two very overworked, tired people raising a child, and that's not going to be a recipe for success. You need to have engaged teachers. You need to have just engaged, the world around you. Maybe multi-familial homes and shit. I don't know. But a lot of the teachers I had were just super like clock in, clock out, or vindictive, fucked up, evil sociopaths.
Yeah, nah, most definitely, man. To get on to like a lighter note too, I don't think we've even like talked about this in like the previous interview, but how did you actually get your stage name? I don't know if that is like sort of like remnants of your actual name, like Myer Clarity, or if it's just like something you just made up like on the spot too. In that sense.
Yeah, the name chose me, not to be like corny about it, but like I used to just go by Clarity because I was trying to find. I wanted something that I could both write as graffiti and have as a rap name. And all my favorite rappers started with C. It was like Common and Classified and shit like that. Cunning Linguist. So I was like, I need a name with a C. And I was bumping Guru featuring Common, State of Clarity. And I was like, Clarity is the name. That's the name. And so for years I just went by Clarity. But on Facebook my name was Myer Clarity because my actual government name is Myer. And people just started calling me Myer Clarity at every show, and I would always correct them. And after a while, I stopped correcting them. And then after a while, it just became the name because I realized that Myer Clarity was a little more unique than just Clarity. And there was also a fuck ton of other Clarities starting to pop out of the woodwork, and it was getting really frustrating. So I was like, okay, well, I definitely am the only Myer that I know of. So that's going to be my name.
Yeah, most definitely, man. So basically, right now, with the whole like situation with the Ontario election, Doug Ford won a second time, which I don't think we're gonna celebrate anymore. I guess we could say like the two-term situation with Obama, like how there was like this meme where Obama had the two-term meme. With the whole like 2 Chainz situation, I think that's the same with like Doug Ford right now. But one of the most surprising things too is that only 33% of the actual like registered voters actually like voted, and I think the rest just kind of stopped for a bit. So
yeah.
How did you react for him winning the second term and only like 33% of Ontario like voting?
Yo, we all gonna fucking die. This man can't even fucking check his own email, okay? And he's in for a second term? Like, no. What the fuck are we doing? And then the 33% thing, well, let me tell you a story. I went to go vote first thing in the fucking morning. First thing. Them bitches open at 9 a.m. My polling station, they were inexplicably closed. There was a line around the block, and we're all just standing there with our dicks in our hands like, what's going on? It turns out the reporting officer for that polling station, who is the person in charge of making all of the decisions and everyone else is essentially a volunteer, quit the morning of the election. And they quit, and then the internet cut out. And so that polling station had no fucking clue what to do for 40 goddamn minutes. And a bunch of people dipped. So we just saw a bunch of votes walk away. And I wouldn't be surprised if goofy shit like that happened at multiple locations. Because Dougie doesn't play fair. He's a coke dealer from the suburbs. And those fat fucking motherfuckers, I don't want to bring it to a body shaming place, but those motherfuckers don't play fair. They are the kids who bring their Monopoly board and then change the rules halfway through and then storm out when you start winning.
Most definitely. I mean, I think the best situation that actually happened was that Mark Saunders, who used to be the former chief, he didn't win. I'm glad someone else won over him. Rob Ford's, Doug Ford's nephew actually won in like York, Southwestern, I think, and then a whole lot of other people won.
Nepotism.
But yeah. I think the Etobicoke North situation where Doug Ford is like based out of. So one situation was that I think Karima Saad from Twitter, like a well-known like lawyer and well-known activist in a sense too. So she recorded that I think no one was checking IDs like at some of the polling stations that they were at, and I guess there were like some free votes like right there for Doug to win in that sense too. So
See what I mean? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, they didn't really like. We had our IDs, but like, for example, when my girl voted, they showed her that her vote was counted, right? But they didn't show me that, so I don't know if my vote was counted or not. So when they like try to frame that 33% only showed up, I think it's more that you fucks harvested the shit down and whittled it down to such a unusable polling service that the remaining percent of that fucking figure, what is it, 67%, is fucking just inadmissible votes, glitchery, bullshit. Yeah, a bunch of people didn't show up. I thought of not showing up because I'm like, this is a farce. I did show up and I was correct. It was a farce. But you know what? I still did it because I'd rather have done it and be mad but still have it under my belt than feel like an asshole. So, yeah, we're not going to celebrate it. Your political prowess is a lot further than mine. I've noticed a couple of people have stepped down, which I'm always happy about. But it does really feel like a game of just like, all right, well, what are you going to do, bro? You going to eat the dog turd or are you going to let us beat on you? And it's like, do I really, these are my choices? Like, okay, shit, fuck. I guess I'll take the beating.
it's more so like a game of like Squid Games mixed in with Total Drama Island in that sense too, where a lot of bullshit could happen for reality, So I think even with this whole situation, what was I gonna say? So even with the whole situation with Del Duca and Horwath, resigning too in that sense, and I think even like this idea of espionage. I don't know if you ever felt like the conservatives did like some espionage, like to rig the votes in that sense too. Like it's kind of like a weird conspiracy like that I had for a bit, like with the whole like situation going on.
I wouldn't put it past. I kind of assume everyone's playing a little dirty. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It's a scary time, and I think we have far too much power in the hands of people less capable than we. And you know what they say, right? It's like those who refuse to govern will be governed by those less than them, or some sort of rendition of that. And I feel like that's where we're at now.
Yeah, most def. Just to even speak forth on Del Duca and Horwath resigning, how did you feel? Like, how do you feel about that sense too? And do you feel like there might be some hope for the Ontario government to have better leaders in next year's election, or at least a better interim leader for the NDP and like Liberal parties like right now?
I hope so. I certainly hope someone a little more involved is going to come. I kind of look at like political candidates like people that audition on Shark Tank, but like they're the people who come to Shark Tank with no preparation. And they're like, well, I have this idea. And then everyone in Shark Tank is like, well, you haven't started your idea yet, so there's nothing to invest in. I feel like they're coming to us like, you need to invest all of your votes into me, and then I'm going to do a thing. Versus a winning recipe has always been, I am already doing this thing. If you like it and want it to be bigger and better, invest in me. And that's how I think we should treat political candidates. It's like people who don't roll through and promise that they're going to fix things. People who try and fix things already.
Yeah. No, most definitely. Hopefully we'll see how it works out. Maybe it might be better for Ford in a sense too. I don't think so, but hopefully something might work in that sense too. But it is what it is,
We'll see what happens.
So I've talked about the same question with Skeeves like just a while back, but how do you feel about Toronto going back to some sort of like normal right now with everything opening up, shows coming back, people going back to their office jobs and all that? Do you feel like it'll just be like what it was pre-pandemic, or do you disagree?
I'm holding like the dialectic that we might have to go back into another shutdown, just because there's always all these variants going on, and I just feel like this shit's too good to be true. I think we've all just gotten to the point where everyone's like, okay, whatever happens will happen, and as a society, which is a little fucked up, admittedly. It's nice that things are kind of like back in motion, obviously. There's a lot of learning. I think everyone is like gonna have a lot of work to do, and I'm scared that a bunch of people aren't going to do that work, and I don't know what that's gonna make the streets look like. It's also about to be a very hot summer, so that's going to compile on top of it. So stay safe out there, everybody, because it might be a crazy fucking summer. Everyone's been pent up for 2 years, and now they're about to go out. So crazy shit. I think that I not to be pessimistic, but I feel like we're just gonna see a slow decline from here on out, and everything is just there's gonna be news reports every day about how. All right, well, water's privatized now, or the fucking, dogs are extinct. It's just really bleak news,
There's a lot of out of pocket stuff going on right now in the city with kids bringing pellet guns to school, shooting it at random people. Some guy getting killed by the police for carrying a random pellet rifle and being executed for it. Kids throwing I think fireworks at police vans and all that, rocket launchers too. Actual fire rocket launchers, not the whole actual RPGs and all that. And then Rolling Loud coming to Toronto and all these festivals coming back. How do you feel about what's going on in Toronto right now, even with these types of situations?
Kids are dumb. They always do dumb shit, man. They not all of them, but bro, I used to fight with fireworks when I was a teenager. We used to do wizard battles and shit. Some of us preferred to do that kind of shit in less public places so that you wouldn't hurt anyone. I don't think I think people aren't as good at what's the word I'm looking for? Not a cost analysis, but people aren't good at gauging what the consequences of their actions are going to be lately. I don't know what the fuck it is. I think it's social media and clout chasing, maybe. I think that itch for attention makes you do dumb shit that gets you in trouble down the line, like throwing chairs off a balcony. So yeah, if there's wizard fights and shit going on in public places and people are getting hurt, that's teenagers, bruh. That's fucked up about the police, though. I mean, not surprising either, but the pellet gun thing in high school, I had a pellet gun in high school. No one should die for it. It was dumb of me to own it. I definitely overpaid for it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the last interview that you had with this other artist, and you guys talked about how in high school, the teacher was absent for a bit, and kids were either fighting or doing random BS at school.
That was a wild year. Yeah, that was grade 8. That was the third week of grade 8. Our homeroom teacher, who was also our English, history, math, and social studies teacher, I think. She was our everything teacher. Got pregnant and then left the whole year. And then we had this substitute who was in over her head, and we just did crossword puzzles the whole fucking year, except that there'd always be a fight every time. And it was funny watching her try to get 2 kids that are taller than her to try to stop fighting.
Most definitely, man. And I know, as I mentioned, Rolling Loud's coming to Toronto in September and all these other festivals too. So how do you feel about those festivals and other events coming to Toronto right now?
I only fuck with festivals that let Myer Clarity perform a set. Every other festival is a who. Yeah, that's how that goes. But no, people need shit to do for the summer. I hope everyone's going to be safe. Festivals are dope. The youths, all that jazz. Let's let some of these young artists make some money. Book Myer Clarity. It is what it is. Yeah.
Most definitely, man. Just have these last 3 questions right now. So with gun violence, I don't think it's as rampant right now in the city, but there has been a lot of crazy stuff, and we even mentioned the whole pellet gun situation. So how do you feel that gun violence in Toronto can be prevented right now?
I had this like analogy when we were talking about this in the States the other day, gun violence in the States rather, and it's like I kind of see guns as like a toothbrush in prison, where it's like, and this could be bullshit or cap because I ain't never been to prison, but like it's a tool that is more likely going to be used to harm someone than for anything else because of the circumstances they're in. Like you incarcerate motherfuckers, you know, already socially that does a whole thing, and that's like crab bucket mentality. And then on top of that, you give people the tools to harm each other without any resources for them to thrive, then it's just going to turn into a big fucking battle, right? So I kind of see it as that. It's like they took away all the things that would make people not want to kill each other, and then they gave everyone a whole bunch of tools to kill each other. And now they're acting like it's our fault. And, you know, that being said, I think the NRA is fucked up. I think they need to definitely legislate some shit. I think a lot of guns need to be taken from a lot of people. You know, I'm not the one to be like I said, it's a rather have and not need than need and not have situation. I think this goes back to what I was saying about how like a lot of society is set up in a way where too many other people have the power. So like, for example, I wouldn't really trust to outsource my security to like police, you know, like I would rather own a weapon kind of thing. But I know that shit is all fucked up, and that's likely to, I don't know. It's such a tough issue. Like I said, it's like the toothbrush thing. It's like, well, you're not going to confiscate toothbrushes because people need to brush their fucking teeth still, right? But, you know, even if everyone's been using toothbrushes primarily for shanking, you still need the toothbrushes, though. Like, it's not going to, you know? So, like, what do we do in this situation? Well, you get people out of jail. You get people out of wanting to fucking kill each other. I guess is, like, that's what I would spend my attention on.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, Trudeau right now, he has imposed like a handgun ban for a bit. That was like all over like the news recently. I think after the whole situation with Uvalde and with Tulsa and with Buffalo, I think they're trying to be as much strict now. But I think with the Republicans, I think they're trying to not back down and to keep like the First Amendment in that situation too. So
Yeah.
that's still going to be tough for a while, even though there is like a public like outcry for them to reconsider.
I mean, if I think about it from the perspective of students, right? Where it's like, yo, what is that life like? Where it's like, I'm terrified to go to school because I might die. And like, no fucking adults are taking this shit seriously. And everyone's like, well, you gotta go to school. And I'm here like, well, I don't want to because I might get murdered. And everyone's just like, oh, well, we're going to petition the Republicans and, you know, we'll see what we could get done next term. It's like, fuck you, we're all dying. Like, bro. Like, so, you know, from that perspective, yeah, I'd be fucking furious. You know, Mitch McConnell can fuck off. And, like, I don't understand a political party that frames this whole thing around just, like, overt selfishness, you know?
Yeah. I think the sad truth is that a lot of these like Republicans care about like a life in terms of abortion rather than like a life with the child being alive, with being killed and all that, you know. So
Yeah.
I'd rather care about like some unborn baby that wouldn't really have that mindset to think anyway if they're gonna live or die versus an actual like living child in that sense too that might have those same fears as well, you know. So it's kind of a weird like.
The shit with
Conservatives is that like they exist, like all of their arguments exist in theory, right? And it's all these theory-based arguments, but the minute any of it goes out into real practice, it's like they could give a fuck. And so all these like theories that they have that are stupid and ill-researched, then you go out to practice, you're like, well, what about all the kids in the foster system, right? And they're like, well, no, we don't care about them. And it's like, well, then what the fuck? Your whole argument is just a theory argument. And the minute it turns into reality, you just bail. Like, you know, like the people you're chastising, essentially. Like, fuck's sakes, bro. Like, yeah, I don't understand that. This whole, like, sanctity of life thing, but meanwhile, you're letting every single person die all the time and ruining the quality of every single person's life. It's like you'd rather make life on Earth hell on Earth than let a life escape Earth for the sake of everyone's like health and that life, I guess. You know, and yeah, I don't know. It's fucked.
Like a broken telephone in that sense too. Like, hey, I'd care for someone that's not living in that sense too, versus when they're actually like living in that sense. And I think, you know, there's no discussion for it. I think it's just pretty straightforward. So
It is such a flawed, like, acrobatic ethical thing. Like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's all about control, and it's just like, I'm so tired of everyone fighting for the ball of control. It's like, guys, this is corny. Like, you don't realize that we've already realized there's aliens and other dimensions and shit, and we could be doing so much interesting shit as a species, but everyone instead is just trying to tell people how to fucking be. And it's like, what the fuck, man? Why would you spend your whole life doing that? Like,
yeah. Bro, it's kind of like the 1950s all over again, but we're living in modern times, and
it's the 1950s except with Wi-Fi, right?
yeah, most definitely, man. With everything else going on in life, do you have any regrets by any chance, or do you regret nothing?
I regret nothing. No, yeah, man, I got regrets. Regrets are what make you a better person because you do things differently the next time. I guess, or you try to do better. Like, my whole perspective is like, am I doing the best job that I can today, or I try? And the answer is like, you know, I could have done a better job today. You know, I regret that I didn't leap out of bed this morning and shit. I regret that, you know, I was drunk for one half of my career. You know, I regret things I said to certain people. I regret how certain relationships ended. But, you know, there's other things where it's like, is it regret or is it just reminiscing, you know? Or it's like a time has ended. So, you know, it's like, I think every artist kind of has a thing that they could have done or would have done. My thing, the more I do therapy, the more I like to like let myself off the hook for regrets. You know, like the best music comes from people that are relaxed, right? So if you're tense about all the things you should have done, then you're not going to make good music. I also like to think about the regrets that all my idols have and be like, what does Kendrick Lamar regret? Like, and just sort of, I don't know. There's something curious about that because, like, I see all my idols as, like, infallible. So to, like, bring them back to this human place and remind ourselves that none of us are 100% anything and we're all flawed individuals kind of makes me feel better about myself because then I'm not trying to compare with, like, this pedestal deity fucking artist, you know? So, yeah. I don't know. Don't let regrets like take over your life, but be mindful of things you want to do differently.
Yeah, most definitely. What's next for you, like right now?
So like I said, we got Marooned that just dropped, and hoping that turns into an overnight viral success, the likes of which propels me to heights of success I've never seen before. And then after that, I got Big Plans, which is dropping this month too. Which is a fun record. There's a sneak peek available on YouTube if you want to check it out. But that's coming on the 24th. Then July 2nd is the 10-year anniversary of Meet Me at the Park. So we're going to be partying hard for that. I got a couple goodies dropping for then. I got some new music also. In addition to that, other new music coming out near the end of the summer. It's basically like I've been sitting on some shit and I'm trying to get it all out. And yeah, it's buckshot season. So you're going to be getting a steady drip of Myer Clarity. And we're going to try and make each wave bigger than the last one so that we can get some dope videos. We can get some dope tours. We can get some dope merch. We can get some dope stories. We can get some dope fucking everything in this motherfucker. Because that's the goal.
Definitely, man. Myer Clarity, thank you for coming by for this very dope, like, in-person video, like, interview, you know? It was kind of, like, very, like, expected, like, long expected and all that, like, a long time coming, and, you know, I'm glad that we managed to get the ball rolling to get this done, actually, you know? And I'm glad that you came by, you know, to speak more on, like, a lot of, like, dope topics to open up on like a lot of like unique things too, as opposed to like last time. Like you did like speak up more too, but I think like we had like a crazy ass conversation like right here, and I feel like this one's like for the books too and all that, and in person, so can't miss that, so.
I love that, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for letting me rant my brain off. I hope all the people watching this go check out the music and go check out the other interviews. We're only going to be doing cooler and cooler shit from here on out. So, once again, thanks for having me. Peace out, everybody.